I feel like someone at Marvel said, throw all the Easter eggs you possibly can at them in this episode. And let's just see if they can catch on. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Episode 5. I didn't do one for episode 4. Part of it was because of the holidays. It's a weird thing with Loki coming out on Tuesday because I still have a work week that I have to do my day job. And so I saw it on Tuesday night, planned to do it, but then holidays and the world just started getting in the way. And by the time that I was like, oh, I can do this now, it was already Tuesday and the next one was coming out. So I was like, all right, we'll just sort of do it together. But if you listen to the podcast, which is here on YouTube, that we do with the Marvel Pair Ups with Jamie Jarek and Blake, you will see that how I felt about the episode. That was by far, episode 4 was by far my favorite episode of the entire series that we've gotten thus far. That hasn't really changed too much with episode 5, which is called The Journey into Mystery. The Nexus event still is my favorite, even after seeing this. Episode 4 does this thing where it starts off being this really slow, methodical belief or step into romance with Loki and Sylvie. And I know everybody's been shipping, which I can go either way with people shipping everyone. I don't know where this fad came from. But these two being together, it works. And so they create this Nexus event that sort of branches off and becomes Bedlam, and the TVA loses it. They find them, they bring them back, split them up, and what we've seen is a calamity ensues. Sylvie has a B-15 look into her memories a little bit, learn that she was a variant. Loki tells Mobius that he was a variant, and essentially everybody gets pruned. Loki gets pruned, Mobius gets pruned, and what we learn and pick up within this episode, we get from the post credits from episode 4, is that getting pruned does not mean an immediate death. It puts you in this sort of nebulous world, the void, where you are not cannot be placed back on your own current timeline, and you don't really affect anything else in the timeline. You exist off the grid. You can't affect any timelines. You go there to basically die. In this void, there is this masterful, almost sort of gatekeeper called like cloud-like creature. Feels a lot like some of the stuff you've seen in the original Fantastic Four movies, but where it's this cloud-like nebulous named Eliath that is gatekeeping. They don't know they don't know that he's gatekeeping, but he's there basically destroy and wipe out all the people that are pruned and put on that planet. What is fascinating to me, we saw it in the post-credit sequences. What's fascinating here is that Loki is in a sea of other Lokis. So it leads me to believe that there is a force, if not maybe even a Loki version himself, but there is a force that is going around collecting all the Lokis from whatever variants, from whatever time nexuses they see. Because they feel that if anybody is going to sort of alter the lie that they've created or put a wrench in the lie that they've created with the TVA, it's going to be the Lokis. So I'm now starting to think that the Nexus event that Sylvie was a part of, that Ravonna just refused to tell her and kind of have that smile and smirk on her face, it's because she knows that it was a dirty thing. Like, she knows that we were literally just going around to all the Asgards and collecting Lokis. Because if anyone can stop this the most, it's you. So that's why in this void, we have just a sea of Lokis. All Lokis you can think of. Boastful Loki, Kid Loki, Classic Loki, Alligator Loki. And with all these Lokis, they sort of have a rapport and it's a bit of a different skill set. They go kind of rest and start learning a little bit more about each other and where they've come from, their power sets, and what we learn is that we get to see presidential Loki. But what we learn is that you can't trust the Loki. And all the Lokis basically start backstabbing, which would happen if you had a room of Lokis. What else do you expect to happen? They're all going to start backstabbing each other, and that's literally what happens. And it ensues pretty much the only real action sequence that occurs in this episode is just the Lokis using their power sets to just one up each other and have a good time with each other. The alligator bites off a hand like Peter Pan or Hook. So it's just a fun time. Alligator Loki has his own Twitter icon, so that's how much he's sort of picked up. But there's a lot of just chaos happening in that room and then in the world as a whole. We see, before you even enter the space, get a couple Easter eggs. We see Throg bouncing up and down in the jar. Look it up. You'd be like, a frog Thor? It's a real thing. We see the copter for Thanos randomly around. It's just a lot of just smile on your face if you're a Marvel fan. You just catch them sort of in the background. But look alive because stuff is moving quickly. What's interesting about this episode is that this episode does so much and puts so much on the ground. It's so dense. There's a lot happening, but the plot or the actual story that is moving from this for the season doesn't really move too much. This is very much a contained episode where everything's sort of happening, but we don't really take measured steps to get to the next beat of the story thread, which is interesting because it's the penultimate episode before we get to episode 6, which is supposed to be the finale. It's a choice. I don't mind it, but it is seem like, oh, you could have probably sped this up a little bit more to get to the point, especially since the first act of this show, while Loki is in the void, Sylvie is still at TVA dealing with the ramifications of Ravonna, and so there is a lot of back and forth, one-upsmanship between them. Do you trust her, trust them? And I'm of the belief, I feel like Ravonna has been the one character that I don't just have enough backstory on. I don't know if they're purposely leaving her vague or if they're just choosing not to establish her too much. Because Gugu is a fantastic actress. It's just not, there's just not a lot to know or like or care about this character. We may get that because a lot of people are assuming that the big bad reveal is going to be King the Conqueror, which is love interest of Ravonna. I think even if that is the case, I feel like they have been separated or apart enough that Ravonna is trying to get back to him because she seems to not really know what the hell is going on either. She seems to be under the belief that these were the timekeepers and this she was doing her job, and now she has sort of been lied to. So I think there's a bit of distrust for her and what she was told by whomever and what she's actually doing. So I don't think she knows what she's really doing. But Sylvie gets there and sort of sacrifices herself after getting a 10-pack. So I think the 10-pack may come into play once we get to the void and they eventually try to escape. But once we're in the void, Sylvie is fighting the big cloud monster, and she gets away by, Mobius. Which you kind of knew that if the post-credit sequence had Loki still being alive after being pruned, Mobius would be as well. So Mobius comes and is having a good time, and it's good to see Mobius still around because I think everybody's heart sort of broke when he talked about his jet ski, and then they took him. But they find the other Loki, and they sort of establish or create a plan. And I think for me, my favorite part of this entire episode, why everything else is so big and bombastic and colorful and just very comic booky. I guess I'm a hopeless romantic, is when Loki and Sylvie are sitting side by side and like two awkward teens at a dance trying to like flirt with each other, and Loki creates a blanket out of thin air and then creates one for Sylvie, even though she's like, I don't think I need one. I'm not cold. This outfit's weird. And she's like, well, here, take my look. It's so awkward, but it's so cute because neither of these two, you think about it, Loki's never loved. He's been a trickster the whole time, but Sylvie's actually never really been around people that she's supposed to love or care about her entire life. She was ripped away as a kid, and she's just been on the run the whole time. So this is both of their times, real first time flirting. They may have been with people, but this is like people that they actually care about, which is just fun to see. But before the big like decision to move on and sort of how to defeat Alioth and realize that he's the gatekeeper for where they actually need to get to, we sort of get a goodbye. The goodbye that we did not get in the last episode that we thought we were going to be sort of ripped away from with Loki and Mobius. They have their hug goodbye and they're friends, and Mobius can't leave without getting the last like, you're my favorite Loki, saying it in the ear of Loki, but looking at Sylvie, and Sylvie's kind of just throws off. It's a fun little triangle the three of them have. And it was good to see that he got to ride off in the sunset. We don't know what's going to happen with him when he gets back to TVA. I'm assuming he's, like he said, he's going to burn it all down. I'm not sure how he's planning to do that, considering he doesn't have much say once he gets there. Although if he can get a hold of B-15, who was being trapped and interrogated, consistently by Ravonna, I think he might be out of the plan because she's not for play. But while he goes back, we have the Lokis trying to create a plan. So classic Loki and Sylvie trying to just sort of get everything separated to stop so they can get to where they need to get to. And in doing so, classic Loki expends a lot of energy. But what we see is, and Sylvie sort of already has known this, is that we all basically have the same powers. You have not tapped into all of your powers of enchantment and all of this stuff, but you have it. And so they sort of hold hands and come together and create enough of an enchantment, enough of a power to sort of split Alioth apart. And then what they see after classic Loki has sort of distracted him and sacrificed himself with a version of Asgard, they see a citadel, just a big building off in the distance, and we end with them having to walk to it. And so, like I said, this episode does not have a lot. We really don't move the needle too much or the story wise. We still don't know who the big bad is. We still don't know what Ravonna is. Loki and Sylvie are a little closer than they were before, and Mobius is back on the board and has said goodbye. But the actual story from the top of the series to what we were going to get in the end has not been moved too much in this episode. This is more of an episode to kind of like get to the gate, knock on the door, and then the final episode we sort of kick the door in and see what we got. And the fact there have been so many rumors that Loki is the only show that is currently getting a season 2, it leads me to believe that we're not going to get a full-on answer or a full-on finale with this last episode of Loki. I do think Kang is going to be the villain reveal that we get, and he's going to be sort of the new big bad. But I think with Kang being the big bad, I believe you're going to probably get another season of Kang being the villain of Loki before we get to Ant-Man, because Ant-Man doesn't come out to 2023. So you can easily use Jonathan Majors in this to sort of establish Kang, get him more on the board as the big bad before you move him onto the villain. He can sort of become the villain of this world as a whole. I think we're going to lose. It's going to be some sadness, I think, though, because anytime you have an announcement of a season 2 and the way that this is going and how much they're trying to put Loki and Sylvie together, I think the thing that's going to make this story more powerful and is we're going to have to lose one of them. I was of the belief for a while there that they were going to kill Sylvie and Loki was going to have to go to whatever time he could find her and bring her back and try to chase her through the calamities that she is in. I think that would hit the audience hard because they've grown to like Sylvie, and it sort of creates this angry / I don't care about anything type of Loki. But I think where the sweet spot in this is going to be, if you take off Loki, the audience is going to be enthralled because they're going to be watching, like, I need to see how Sylvie gets back. And I think you put another solid female character in play, I think there's more to play with seeing Sylvie try to go find an era of the Loki that she knows that is decent enough or human enough to pull out. Because you got to be careful, because there's going to be parts of that Loki where we've seen him and he just doesn't give a damn. She's going to have to go find and pinpoint the one that, like, this is the one that actually gives a damn. So I think but either way, I think we're going to lose one of the 2 Lokis, either Loki or Sylvie, in this finale. I think Kang is going to be the big bad. And I just hope that they use or do something with Ravonna to make her existence worthwhile. Because right now, she is probably the most useless character on this, which sucks. Because Gugu's amazing. But those are my thoughts for Loki episode 5. Not my favorite, but it's going to be hard coming down off of the greatness that I thought was episode 4. But it's a good setup piece. There's a lot of stuff that's just fun to chew on in this. But I'm excited for episode 6. I'm curious to see how this all sort of comes together and what was the point of almost doing this one episode story or exposition, second story, character development, exposition, character. They've been sort of going this seesaw back and forth. So I'm curious to see why it's been taking this very methodical approach to get to whatever we're going to get to in the finale. What did you guys think of episode 5 of Loki. Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. We are currently doing a Marvel pair-up with Loki with all these time-traveling movies. We just last did About Time, which is interesting. You can hear that here on the channel. We also did our classic show where we talked about the Forever Purge and the Purge series as a whole. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.